Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Royal Instinct. Today we're going to be watching a couple of videos exposing the mainstream media narrative against Arsenal, the mainstream media trying to rile up Arsenal fans into a emotional frenzy, into a position where they are not thinking clearly and are easily triggered to um, essentially bring you into a fit of rage. Okay, why are they doing that? They are doing that because they want to control you. They want to control the narrative. Okay, they want Arsenal fans to pile the pressure on to their own club in order to bring about capitulation as Arsenal go towards the title. They are in all four competitions, most likely, possibly, to win a quadruple. And the mainstream media is shitting it, basically. People like Gary Neville don't want Arsenal to eclipse his treble winning team. Um, People in the mainstream media, Arsenal have been a laughing stock, a banter club for the last 2 decades, and they don't want to see the situation change. They do not want to Arsenal to be the new top dog of the English Football League, because what would that say about Manchester United? What would that say about Chelsea? Okay. So you have to realize that this is all about a campaign to put you into an angry fit, into a rage, fit. They are trying to rage bait you, and it is even within the own, um, you know, within their own base of support, right? There is this one journalist who we will be looking at, who wrote an article calling Arsenal fans the worst fan base. And when your own people from within your club are saying that within your own group of supporters, what chance do you have? But let's jump straight into the video from the football terrorist, which I like. Really, he's a Man United fan, and he encapsulates what it is Gary Neville is all about.
Night from Gary Neville was nothing short of a disgrace. Let's just be blunt about it. It was some of the worst punditry, some of the worst commentary we have ever had to endure.
And you have to understand Gary Neville's position right now, okay? In an interview on The Overlap, he said that his final contract, which, the final contract of a footballer is usually his biggest one. And Gary Neville was getting, I think, something less like 30K a week. He was getting something like less than 2 million per year, right? While Wayne Rooney on his last contract, or at around the same time, was getting 15 million per year, right? So Gary Neville is a football. He's a footballer who's had a great career, right? He's won 2 Champions Leagues. He's been, he's won like 8 odd fucking titles, right? Like he's had a great career in terms of trophies, in terms of his caps, in terms of his performances. However, financially, he never done that well, okay, especially compared to his best mate, David Beckham, who was getting sponsorship deals, who was getting higher salaries from Real Madrid, from United. He, compared to those guys, Gary Neville is financially lacking, right? So now that he is a pundit, that is why you see him on The Overlap, sponsoring every fucking every fucking product that he can find. He is sponsoring Huel. He is sponsoring like these random clothing brands. Any excuse to make a buck, any excuse to make a little bit of money. He is sponsoring gambling websites. Okay. All the while telling what the white majority supporters of United what to do, right? Like, you saw that fucking video he had about that he had a construction site and the workers put out a St. George's flag, and and a Union Jack, and he ripped it down because he didn't want to offend anyone. Gary Neville is a panderer. He is somebody who is pretending to be a man of the people while he is the worst of the lot. And his agenda against Arsenal is the tip of the iceberg.
And it all stems from this weird obsession that people have with sticking it on Arsenal fans. And
the reason is because, like Arsenal were, probably the second best team in the late 90s, early 2000s, right? Because United, they were just a financial juggernaut. Arsenal, on the other hand, were a team that was competing, that was very frugal. They had this cool image about them compared to, because they had all these French players like Thierry, like Vavavoom, like the Renault Clio adverts. And United were the financial juggernaut. They were the biggest financial institution. They still are, in terms of generating revenue, a really big financial power. But, both teams have fallen off, right, from what they were at the turn of the century, right, around 2000. United, it's been over 10 years now, 13 years since the last title, and Arsenal are on the cusp of winning their title after 2 decades without winning the Premier League, without competing for the Premier League. Okay, and it really hurts these ex-United players, right? Rio Ferdinand, right? Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, all these players who are chatting shit about Arsenal, they are so because they want their club, their legacy to continue winning the top prizes. And the fact that Arsenal was able to get it right finally, right? I mean, it's not like it's been a quick turnaround. It's like it took a long time, but they have turned it around now under Mikel Arteta. And there's also a jealousy towards Mikel Arteta because he wasn't a top player. However, he in essence, never had to fight his way at another club to kind of make his bones, to kind of get that education of a coach. He kind of, in their eyes, was just a number 2 for Pep for a couple of years, and then walked into the top job at Arsenal. And they know that they don't have any credibility in coaching. They know that they don't have any chance of ever managing United. And because of that situation, I think there is a lot of jealousy towards Mikel. I think there is a jealousy towards how the Cronkies are running Arsenal compared to the Glazers over at United. And you see all that undertone being taken out on the crappy punditry that Arsenal get from Gary Neville and the likes. Okay. Another thing is, it all just comes down to banter, right? Like all this, the reason people watch football these days, the reason you get all this online discourse online about football, it's all to get one over one another, over your rival fan base. It's in order for you to feel more superior. Because where else are you going to feel superior in your life, right? Most people live shit lives. Most people are stuck in their basements. Most people are stuck in their jobs, making ends meet, just making enough money so for them to go enjoy the football that they support, the teams that they support, for them to make enough money so they can, get by, pay for their bills, pay for the food, because there is a cost of living crisis, right? Like people aren't thriving right now. And, when you feel shit in your situation, when there is no hope, you look for an easy target, easy people, an easy target to shit on so that you can feel more superior. And that is what a lot of football fans do. Most football fans aren't ever going to change the situation. But here at Raw Instinct, we are better than that. We are here. I'm here to wake you up. I'm here to tell you that there is another way, that there is an alternative, that you need to gain back your power. Don't allow these media outlets, don't allow these pundits to rile you up, to take away agency from you. Take back your agency, take back your power. And I want you to become somebody who is well-known, well-established. I want you to establish your own kingdom so that when shit hits the fan, when the financial crises come, when the next wars come, that you are well protected. Protect yourself, protect your loved ones. Do not fall for this trap from the media.
And some will see this as defending Arsenal. I see this as defending and protecting football by and large, because there's times to criticize managers, players, and teams. There's times to criticize fans because we do things wrong as well. But I believe this onslaught has been going on for far too long and is massively over the top. And we're going to break down why. What Gary Neville did last night, I think, is a disgrace to football. The media reaction since has been abominable. Has been an abomination. And I don't understand why there is such an obsession with these attacks. Please like, share, and get yourself.
The obsession comes from a loss in status, right? Like, people like the fact that Arsenal are punch a bag, right? The whole of the media landscape right now, all the journalists are saying about Arsenal going to bottle it this season, Arsenal going to do this, because it's an easy narrative for them to understand, and they don't want to change the status quo. They do not want to change any of the narratives. They want that shit to continue. They like it when Man City is at the top. You know, Pep winning every single fucking trophy year in, year out. They like it when Klopp was challenging, you know, nearly getting there and getting one here and there, right? They like it when things are homogenous, when things are the same, when things aren't ever changing. Because why? Because the world that we live in right now is so unpredictable that they like the predictability of the Premier League. They want it to be close, but not too close to the fact that you might get a new winner, right? And all this is coming out in this negative hate towards Arsenal, because a lot of the journalists, they don't like to see an underdog do well, right? Supporters do, right? Most people, fans would like an underdog to do well, but the media doesn't like it, right? They like the establishment to take full control and things to remain the same.
Subscribing to the channel right now, and if you can, turn the bell notification button on as well. Now, I saw this tweet that came out from Paddy Power, which again is funny. It holds a lot of water in my
I mean, like, when you have Paddy Power making a fucking meme saying, like, literally everyone, I reckon Chelsea should try to do actually something here. Gary Neville, God, Arsenal are terrible, aren't they? Right? Like, when you have, you know, a betting company on the internet, you know, seeing what the normal people are seeing, right? And making fun of you, then you really should be able to self-reflect, okay? And understand what it is that you're doing wrong, okay? Like, I'm not saying Gary Neville should fucking read every tweet, but I'm sure he has people that he hires to scroll, you know, social media for him, and they should be able to alert him on what this the image that he's currently portraying.
Personal opinion, I think there is a lot of truth to what I'm seeing here. What I found very interesting when kind of looking at this is I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and everybody else was watching it and thinking Chelsea should try and do something here. Chelsea should try and attack. But Gary Neville just kept on going on about how negative Arsenal were, how Arsenal weren't trying to attack, how Arsenal were being sort of taking too big a risk.
I like this guy. I think he, you know, he comments on the Big Six football a lot, but he has a very balanced view. He has a very realistic view of the situation, right? Like, I think he's a United supporter, but even he can, you know, look at objective truth and comment on it, while as all this the legacy media is currently trying to bury their heads in the sand.
How they had to try and attack more to win the game, how Rossini would be really happy with what he was doing. And 99% of Chelsea fans that I follow, 99% of Chelsea fans I spoke to after the game couldn't understand what he was talking about. It was Chelsea that had to attack. It was Chelsea that had to take risks. And it was Arsenal that didn't. Arsenal didn't get dragged into any games. I couldn't understand. I couldn't fathom what he was saying.
Yeah, so this was talking about the game, the Carabao Cup second leg of the semi-final at the Emirates, where Arsenal were leading 3-2. Chelsea had to come out to, you know, score a goal to make it level, to take it to penalties, and all Arsenal had to do was manage the game to not concede. And I get it from a neutral point of view, from a spectator point of view. You want it to be exciting, you want it to be free-flowing football, but that's not Arsenal's job to do in that moment. And you could see Gary Neville being biased towards Chelsea, praising them, being negative towards Arsenal, because he doesn't want them to succeed. He does not want them to get any praise.
this is what I saw after the game as well on TalkSport. I want to thank you very much to Joe who sent this clip into us. Because again, this is carrying on from what Gary Neville started yesterday.
Try and beat Arsenal that way. But when they tried to score, they just couldn't, just didn't.
Yeah, he's talking about that clip on TalkSport, but I've got the actual clip because I do want to speak about that. So let's jump into that one as well. Hang on.
You listen to the Sports Bar on TalkSport. Me, Jamie Hart. That's now the man himself, George Chesterton, senior features writer from The Telegraph. Right, George?
Evening,
Hello.
George.
Hello.
So this geezer here on the left next to Jamie O'Hara, he wrote an article talking about how pathetic the Arsenal fan base is, how annoying they are. I'm literally calling out the Arsenal fan base. He himself is an Arsenal supporter, but just because you might have a few people at AFTV, a few people online who don't paint the best picture, give the best representation of a Arsenal fan, doesn't mean that the whole fucking fan base is like that, right?
Do enough in front of goal.
I know, but you're talking about players here and a lot of money who are good players and make something happen.
Hang on.
Jamie, hello, Dean.
George, thanks for coming on. You've caused a bit of a stir today because of your article. I'm going to read out some of the quotes. Arsenal supporters are increasingly regarded as undignified weirdos.
I mean, based off what? Based off what? Why are Arsenal fans weirdos? Okay, and the whole point of it is, right, because they put that, I think he's a Telegraph writer, right? So they published this article, right? All the other supporters of rival fans are going to cheer. Okay, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea, United, Tottenham, right? They'll all read that, be like, haha, another dig at the Arsenal fan base, right? So they're all cheering for it. And at the same time, you have all the Arsenal fan base actually being like, actually, no, we're not like that, getting enraged themselves. And, now there is online discourse about this irrelevant journalist, about this irrelevant article, right? Just because he was able to trigger enough people on each side, right? Because, Tottenham supporters will use the article as evidence, be like, look, you lot are insufferable over there. And Arsenal fans are going to be like, well, what the fuck did we do? Like, literally, like, we're just here watching our team, supporting it, and people are throwing fucking shit at us. And then if we react, they're like, oh, look, look how weird that fan base is, okay?
Arteta is a LinkedIn manager like a more
Well, that's not true. He's a LinkedIn manager. He's actually probably, the next best coach in the world, right? Like, if he does well this season, if he wins the Premier League, if he wins a couple cup competitions, if he wins the European Cup, he'll be the next standard of managerial appointments all across Europe, right? Like, it's only in England that they don't like him, and I think it comes from the fact that he's not this big name. He was an average Premier League player, right? He had a great career at Everton. He had a great career at Arsenal. Won 2 FA Cups, I believe, in his time here. He was a bit of a journeyman. Yeah, he played for Rangers. He played at PSG. Came through at Barcelona. So he had this, average career. Really, he was a bit of a journeyman. Settled down later on, and they don't like the fact that he is doing well, right? Why is he doing well? Why aren't coaches like Steven Gerrard or Lampard, these world-class players, doing well? Why aren't Scholesy? Why is he not doing well? Okay, right? They are used to a certain profile of player being a manager, right? Whereas if you have somebody else come in and try and do well, they do not like that.
Some version of Jake Humphrey. It feels inauthentic. They have a history of their own, but act as if they want somebody else's. Now, you're an Arsenal fan, right?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing to say, I think, is that the irony is that I got the idea for this article from this show. It's your fault.
So you see, right? So you have a show like TalkSport. Jamie O'Hara is a Tottenham fan, so he's not pro Arsenal, right? He's buddy Jason Cundy. He's a Chelsea fan. He doesn't want Arsenal to do well, right? So there's already a very bias against Arsenal on that show, right? So he's watching it, and the supporters that they get onto the show, that they are literally the worst of the worst. They get them on because they're funny, right? They're funny characters, I guess. The reactions that they give them, they have weird takes sometimes. But just because you have like 10 people, right, that phone into Talk Sport who give these weird opinions, doesn't mean that the whole fan base is like that.
Because if you
They have a picture of what's his name, Troops, DT, and Ty from AFTV. The reason they're on AFTV is because they go viral when they say odd shit, because they are funny, weird characters, okay? But they're not representative of the majority of Arsenal supporters. So I think it's very unfair to paint the whole fan base like that. But it just shows it's like, being polarizing, being extreme is what sells. It is what gets you clicks. And at the end of the day, for these people online, that is what it's all about. It's all about clicks. It's all about getting attention. It's all about spreading negativity, spreading hate. And that is what I want the Arsenal fan base to realize. It's like, look, man, enjoy these next few months while we are on course to win our first Premier League in 20 years. Enjoy the journey. Don't be bogged down by the negativity that the mainstream media is trying to push, right? Don't fall for the rage bait, okay? The best thing to do would be just to switch off from it, right? Switch off from all fucking social media and just watch the matches, right? Watch the matches, watch a match a day afterwards if you want, right? But don't read any of the fucking journalist opinions. That football journalists are the worst people in the world, right? Because they have degrees in journalism, right? And instead of reporting what's happening with the Jeffrey Epstein case, what's happening with global events, they'd be like, oh, well, these two teams are fucking kicking a football. And yeah, let me spend all my fucking time writing about that. Yes, there's fucking money in it, right? But, there comes a point in your life where you have to decide this, what's more important, reporting on what the latest transfer is of XYZ player, or real humanitarian things going on around the world, right? Because they have the talent to do it, right? But they choose not to. They choose not to. And these people think that they're fucking, something special. That these people think that they are, because they're well educated and write about football, that they are somehow God's gift. Well, in reality, is that nobody even gives a fuck about newspapers anymore. These journalists are literally the scum of the earth. Do not pay attention to them. Do not allow your mood, do not allow your worldview be swayed by these people, right? Make up your own opinions, right? If you see the team doing well, right, cheer them on. If you are not liking what you're seeing, have your say on it, right? As a fan, it is your right, but don't allow these people to guide your opinion, to sway your opinion in any shape, right? Because they are doing it for profit. They are trying to piss you off on purpose in order for you to fall victim, and to implode the fan base from the inside.
Listen to this show enough, and you listen to enough callers, and you listen to enough ex-pros, they all say the same thing. So I started to think there must be something in this, because all the callers you get about Arsenal, they all either hate Arsenal or they just mock it and make fun of the fans. And that seemed to be something different and new that's kind of come in the last few years. So it is basically it's this show's fault that I wrote this article. So
are you regretting the article, John?
I have got an incredible amount of abuse today, but the thing.
And then these people, right? That they throw stones, they throw bricks at fucking people, and then they moan when they do get the abuse. On the other hand, it's like, well, if you're going to put yourself in the fucking spotlight, if you're going to put your head out there, right, and make these derogatory comments towards a whole fan base, you're just literally generalizing, right? It's the same thing if you was to say a whole religion painted one way because of a few bad apples, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. If you was to say, oh, like this race here, because they're doing this shit, right? The whole race is like that. It's just, it's not how the world works. There is more nuanced in it. You need to wake up and see what these people are trying to do.
If you look at the responses, half of it is just really, really horrible abuse, and the other half is people saying, well, you're just proving him right. So a lot of people are just the people that aren't Arsenal fans are commenting and saying to those people that are abusing me, saying, "Well, everything you're saying just proves what he said is probably correct." I mean, the thing is, I'm not talking about every Arsenal fan or the majority of Arsenal fans.
But he clearly is when he puts out a headline saying that they are full of weirdos. You know, like if you agree that you're not talking about the whole fan base, right? Then why make a rage bait, headline?
Clearly, there's loads and loads of amazing, what you might call normal Arsenal fans that are still knocking around. I've got loads of friends, season ticket holders, and then they're just, if you're Spurs, you're going to hate them. If you're Chelsea, you're not going to like them either, whatever. That's just normal. But it seems to me that in the last few years, something weird has happened. And you pick it up because, like Jason Cundy was just talking about cringe and whinge. That is a new thing. That did not exist really 10, 15 years ago. And so I wanted to think about that when I was writing the article.
It's happening because Arsenal have been the banter team for the last 20 years. And now that they're on the cusp of doing something, or they're being a proper team again, the masses, rival teams are not enjoying it, right? They want Arsenal to be a laughing stock. They want Arsenal to be a top 6 teams, but not quite making the top 6, right? They rather and they obviously want to watch their own team win, right? That is what rivalries do. It'll be interesting to see what will happen if Arsenal now go on to win the Premier League this season, and if they have a period of not dominance, but where they're challenging for trophies and they win a couple Premier Leagues here and there, and teams like United, Spurs, Chelsea don't ever get back to that place. Like then in another 10 years time, United will become cringe FC because if they ever become challengers again, because that's the cycle of teams, that's the cycle of football fans. It's all about banter. It's all about it's a dick measuring context. How many trophies you've got? How well did you do this season? Right? Like it is all about gaining status through your team. I want you to become somebody who is gaining status through your own actions. Do not buy into this shit.
I wanted to think, why is this happened? Like, where are these? Who are these fans that people hate so much? Because it seems like a new thing, and it seemed to boil down to these new fans that are seen as hysterical. They overreact. People say, oh, they're entitled. And also they believe in things like conspiracy theories, which seems to be, that just didn't exist years ago. And it seems like a new thing.
But the thing is, right, with a conspiracy theory, everything that is a conspiracy theory is proven to be right. Okay. You had, 10 years ago, you had Pizzagate, right, which was a right-wing conspiracy theory about Democrats getting together and drinking blood of children and using code names for trafficking children as pizza, right? Well, the Jeffrey Epstein files come out, and and literally, like, there is examples of them talking code, talking about pizza, human trafficking going on to global elites. Like every conspiracy now, in some way, shape, or form, in 6 months' time from now, will come true, right? So, is a conspiracy theory at that stage? This guy, he belongs to the old world. He has not caught up to see what is happening, where we are moving towards. He is part of the old establishment, and he doesn't want things to change, right? This is a big thing. He does not want things to change. He wants things to stay homogenous and the same.
George, I think you sum it up in the last 2 paragraphs of you. It's a big article. I've read the last 2. I'll just read it out for you, for all the listeners, right?
Well, he knows what it says.
I'll read this bit out. Arsenal have finished second in the league for the past 3 seasons, and this is the biggest source of paranoia. The irony is they're not bottlers. They didn't come second in the league because they're weak. They came second because they were the second best team. This lack of perspective amongst the silliest supporters creates a risk of self-fulfilling.
Yeah, but that perspective is pushed by the media as well, right? Because you have media journalists, credible journalists, coming out and making all these statements about Arsenal, and then these people read, because most people online, most fans online, they don't have a mind of their own. They need somebody to tell them what it is, how they should be feeling. Because if they were just concerned with their own opinion, then they would go to matches, they would form their own opinion, they watch on TV, and that would be the end all, right? But they know they are buying into the rage bait that these legacy media companies are pushing.
Prophecy. Arsenal are, for the first time in years, the best team around. So now it's actually possible that they may bottle it from a position of genuine supremacy. It almost makes me feel sorry for Mikel. Still, it could be worse. You could be a Spurs fan.
See, I mean, it just shows then that right at the end of the article, he has to, get a dig in against Spurs, right? He's attacking his own fan base, but then he's still making a dig at Spurs, right? Which is what all football banter is all about, which is what football culture is all about now. It's all about banter. It's all about getting one over. And the type of banter is like the shittest quality banter as well. It's like, it's all about getting a, like, be banter, like, used to be basically like, on a Monday, you come in the office and you talk about the weekend's results. Yeah. And you're in real life situations, having a dig at each other, having a joke at each other, making each other laugh at each other's expense, right? But you're there in a camaraderie position. You're there in a, friendly environment, a work environment with your mates down the pub or whatever, right? But now all this discourse is happening online. We're between strangers, right? So you have strangers messaging strangers. They have no, they have nothing in their heart, like no goodwill towards you, because they don't know you, right? And this is where this toxicity, this weirdness is coming from. It's the fact that people are able to communicate without knowing each other. So, there is all the banter becomes, like there are no consequences to the banter, because I can't see you at the person behind the comment, behind the, the username who is making those digs, who's making those jokes, right? So then my reaction back to you isn't going to be a friendly one, right? And then it spirals into this negative, toxic environment spiral, which just ends up with both sides just raging and causing negative discourse in the world. But let's jump back into the football terrorists.
No, look, credit to Arsenal. Defensively, they're fantastic. You can't get away from it. They're so hard to break down. But take some risks. Do something out of the ordinary. Make something happen.
Take some risks. Why?
See, like Jamie O'Hara's takes are just very basic. Like, he's a neutral watching. He's not got no invested interest in that game. He just wants to see some action. So he wants to see some risk taking, right? Okay. Whereas if you watch the Spurs Man United Europa League final, right, there was no risk taking there. It was the most boring, the defensively minded final ever played, right? And you didn't talk about taking risks then, did you?
What need is there to take risks when you're winning? And this is exactly what Gary Neville was pulling on. This is exactly what Gary Neville was doing in the game, screaming, take risks.
The other problem is a lot of the time is which is why I'm coming on harder on Gary Neville than Jamie O'Hara, for example, right? Because Jamie O'Hara is only, he's a radio talk show host, right, at this stage, whereas Gary Neville is actually the commentator live at the game, right? And a lot of people, when they hear the commentary, right, their view gets skewed by what is being said, right? So there might not be a negatively defensive-minded performance, right? But then when you have Gary Neville saying it, that they're not taking risks, that they're not, playing well, the view of the game, the lens of the game gets skewed, right? And that is what Gary Neville is hoping to achieve, because he wants to derail the Arsenal fan base.
Do something, make something happen when they didn't need to. And I felt this was such a poor and bad message to send, because what Gary Neville would have done had they taken risks, let's just paint a picture here. The fullbacks keep pushing forward, keep overlapping, vacating the space in the channels. And let's say João Pedro and Delap were exploiting that space. That was pulling Arsenal centre-backs further apart, which made room in the middle for the Enzos of this world, who can be dangerous when they crash into that box space. They break, they move the ball into the channel, they cross the ball, 1-0 via Enzo. The same Gary Neville, the same Jamie O'Hara, 99% of the journalists, 99% of the pundits would have come out and said, stupid Arteta, gun-ho Arteta, no game management, can't handle the pressure, got it all wrong again. The word bottling it would most certainly have been used last night and pushed around social media. Now, I know the Arsenal players couldn't directly hear what was being said. I know the fans at the ground couldn't hear what was being said. But the way they tried to gaslight football supporters all around the world
That's a great word. What the media is doing is they're gaslighting into buying in the narrative that they want you to push. Okay, they are trying to control you, your emotions. They are trying to because the more triggered you are, the more angry you are, the more likely you are to buy their future messaging, their future headlines, video clips that they're pushing online onto you. And the best way, as a fan base, as a football supporter, doesn't matter what team you support, like I really suggest for your own benefit, for your own, cortisol control, for your own, for your health, stay away from it. Do not buy into the media narrative. Watch content online that you align with, that you believe is, fair and just. Unless you're also a troll who just wants to have a little laugh at what the fuck, your favorite creator is saying, what your favorite journalist is saying, to get one over your rival fan base. Let's jump into this other video I wanted to show you. It's again the same topic, and it's from the Gooniverse podcast. I'm gonna have to flick around here, just try and find it. Hang on.
Well, so there's a degree of expecting something back, but with the fans, I always feel that.
Actually, what I'll do is let's jump back into this one.
Who could be Spurs in jail?
I think the Arteta thing is interesting because he's clearly a brilliant manager, and like I said in the article, they're quite likable players. I think as players, a lot of them are really likable players, probably more than they've been for a long time. But there's something a bit, I don't want to use a nasty word. There's something about the way Arteta conducts himself which encourages the worst type of Arsenal supporter. And I think a lot of that is that psychobabble, weird, that kind of way of talking about football, which doesn't really fit the normal ways that people talk about football. All those slogans on the walls. And it's that sort of idea that you have to create a new identity. That's not natural, is it? That's forced.
No, man, Arteta is trying something. He's trying to get more buy-in from the crowd, from the supporters. He's trying to unify the support group, to get the Emirates feeling better. Of course, it's forced, right? I'm not a big fan of the North London Forever song. I do think it's a bit forced. It's a little bit cringe. However, as a manager, somebody, working in football, you have to try these different things, right? You have to try and find different ways to get your message across, different ways to unify a fan base, which he is actually doing, right? So whether you like it or not, he is succeeding, and many people don't like it, right? They don't like it that he is succeeding. And I think it is, even that comment he made there about, Arteta's touchline antics, it's Arteta has calmed down a lot on the touchline. He is not as animated as he used to be. Or he's still animated, but he's not as he's reined it in a little bit. I think he understands how he comes across. I think people have had the words in his ear. It still comes out because he's still anxious to get the title over, right? I do think that once you see him winning a few titles, he's going to be more a little bit more calm on the touchline. But if you look at Pep, still, right, 6 titles in, right, the career that he's had, he's still jumping up and down on the sidelines, right? Last season, he was scratching his face, right? Literally, he had scratch marks all over his face because of these frustrations from this game. But I found the clip that I wanted to show you.
Arsenal fan.
So it is around minute 30. Okay, so if I play it from here, it should be fine.
And I just look at every comment that this guy's dropped over the last 2 weeks across, in terms of what you said about the nerves.
The other team, you fundamentally do. The one, and all I'm hearing from Chelsea, the Chelsea fans I can see, is there's not much in it between us and them. Man United fans have won 3 games
for a while, but I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically about Western derangement syndrome. And he's talking, you know, when you get like a really arsey YouTube comment, do you ever click on the guy's channel and look at what he or she comments on other videos? Because I do that every time. When I think about replying, I click and I just look at every comment that this guy's dropped over the last 2 weeks across various channels, and I go, oh, that's just him. So I don't bother. I did the same with this guy when I was deciding whether or not to read the article.
Yeah, so he is now going to speak about the journalist who wrote the article, and he's going to siphon off the headlines that he's also worked on in the past.
His name's George Chesterton, I believe. So I clicked on what he's done for the Telegraph before it came out. A few headlines for you, yeah? Let me know what you lot think in the comments of what this guy's MO is. At 53 years old, I am a baby names trendsetter. Does that sound like it's going to be an enthralling article? Probably not. Dry January bores should either give up for good or shut up.
So, like, his articles are generally just about nonsense, right, and negativity. So he's talking about people who are, quitting alcohol in January. It's called Dry January. Yeah, they do it because Christmas period you can overindulge. So it's a good way in January to, to reset, to get your health goals back on track. And he's hating on them. He is just hating for the sake of hating. This guy has nothing good to say.
What was that first bit? January what?
Dry January bores. The people that are not drinking through January should either give up for good or shut up. So basically shitting on people for very often doing something for charity or to better their health. Next one. We need to talk about Western derangement syndrome. And he's talking about people that are standing up for human rights, which I think is also mad to call that deranged. I'm going to keep going. Why you want to run away from life in middle age and how to get over it. Is that a sign that you want to run away from life in middle age, George?
I mean, these articles, right, whether you agree with them or not, like, but they're about random topics, right? So he's calling the whole Arsenal fan base deranged and weird, but these are weird articles to write about. Do you know what I mean? I think I said it earlier in the, at the beginning of this show, right? Use your platform to say something fucking positive, right? Don't use it to be like, be angry about people standing up for human rights or people standing up for fucking doing Dry January.
Is that a sign that maybe a lot of your miserable articles, and bro, I could keep going. Northern Ireland style sectarianism is coming to Britain. We should all be terrified. Political scaremongering. So I sat there and I went through absolutely everything, and I thought, do I want to read something that a bloke like this is going to put out about my fan base when our club are in the best position that I can remember as an adult? No, I don't. And I moved on, right?
Yeah, and that guy is an Arsenal supporter, right? That journalist is an Arsenal supporter, right? Instead of enjoying it, I think it's just his negative skew on life, his negative viewpoint. Just sit back and enjoy it, right? And I encourage you, if you're an Arsenal supporter, if you're a football supporter, just to enjoy the fucking game, right? The game should be a source of enjoyment, a pleasure, a break of reality, right? Like, and when the whistle ends, when the game ends, that's it, right? Don't go looking for more evidence of hate. Don't look at all these headlines, talk sport, all this other nonsense, right? Because it will keep you behind, right? Because the elites, the people in power, the media, they want you to be stuck. They want you to be remaining the same, right? Because they want you predictable. They want you docile. They want you numb. They want to stick you in 15-minute cities, right? Just go on the World Economic Forum website. Just have a look what they're saying, right? They want to create these cities where you own nothing and you'll be happy because, they will pump, content at you, porn at you, right? Fast food at you. They will all these things to spike your dopamine in order to numb you, in order to keep you docile, while they are increasing inflation, while they are robbing you blind, while they are destroying the country, selling off the assets, and leaving. When shit hits the fan, they'll be gone. Trust me, the people in charge right now, when shit hits the fan, they'll be the first ones to leave. And when that happens, here at Raw Instinct, we will be fleeing into our own sanctuaries. We will have our own kingdoms. We are establishing our own kingdoms. We are working together to become the new elites, the new rulers of the world. And if you understand what it is that I'm doing here, then I want you to join.
We consume so much on a daily basis. Let's not voluntarily consume shit that we know is going to upset us.
That's why I didn't read it.
Yeah,
I saw the headline, but I'm not reading this.
And
that's great advice, right? If you know something's going to upset you, if you know something's going to trigger you, don't fucking read it. Don't entertain it. Don't allow anyone else to take agency away from you, right? Be in charge of your own life. Be in charge of your own freedom. Create your own freedom in your life, okay? And don't buy into this negative sentiment from the media.
And going at the fans, let me be perfectly clear now. Everything that James just said, right, in terms of what we've been through, but this fan base, for everything people say about us being nervous, for everything that people say about us worrying about our team bottling a bit too much, you cannot tell me that there are not large sections of this fan base that support this club and get behind these players, perhaps better than a hell of a lot of others, right? We are very quick to say a particular player is perhaps sometimes better than he is. There are lots of fans.
Yeah, but that's what fans do. They hype up their own players. That is what a fan base is supposed to do. You're supposed to hype up your own players and say that they're better than other people, right? Whether it's factual or not, that is part of the banter, right? But then people want to take it to places where, they don't like the banter when the other team is doing too good, right? Then the banter becomes a little bit too real in their mind for their liking.
That fall in love with players. I've been called an Arteta sexual at times because of how much I back this manager, even in difficult times. So do not paint us all with the same brush and use a small cross-section of a fan base to generalize all of us. That is where I think you and I both feel the need to stand up for the fan base, even without reading the article. But as I said, the place that it came from, I wasn't too bothered by it because it seemed to me like the people who are negative in the YouTube comments, it's just what they do. And if it's what they want to do, each to their own, leave them to it.
Yeah, I think well said. And
after all that,
yeah, I think he really hit the nail on the head there. I think that guy, he is just like that. He is trying to roll people up, and I believe it's the same with Gary Neville, right? He could say anything he wants on his platforms, yet he chooses to spew hate. He chooses to be negative towards Arsenal because it comes from a place of fear. It comes from a place of him not accepting how reality is panning out.
I guarantee you he'll be at the fucking parade.
Well, don't know. I don't know. I reckon line, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. But Tottenham fans, Chelsea fans, our rivals come and go with ease. It's not a problem. You don't get trouble outside the Emirates Stadium.
Let's jump back into Terry and his comments.
Absolutely embarrassing on every level. Embarrassing on every level. But you've got to remember what this is. 90% of what they do now is about planting a seed for the future. And we're seeing it at Man United right now as well. We're seeing it at Manchester United where I've heard 3 pundits and at least 2 journalists in the last couple of days say United fans are getting happy about winning 3 on a row, but you do realize winning at this rate is unsustainable. Of course it is, because no manager is going to continue to win 100% of their games. We all know it is unsustainable.
Yeah, and I think that's a great word he used there, planting seeds. A lot of what these journalists are doing, they're planting seeds in your mind, places of doubt, so that they're just taking a guess, right? Okay, they're like, oh, so they place a seed of doubt in your head, and when they're right, they're like, oh, look, I wrote an article about it. Look how right I am, and they weigh their little piece of paper and try and get their little raise from their manager, from their job, to try and gain some credibility, because all journalists have lost credibility in the eyes of the media. You just saw it during the 2020s. The lies that the media spewed, right, using false science to back their claims, and now they're trying to gain it back, right? The people on here you know, who are independent content creators sometimes come up with so much better takes, right? So much better insight than all these legacy media people do, right? Because they literally have just a, you know, surface level view of something and they'll stick to it, right? Like even if you watch it on Super Sunday, when you watch Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, you know, Jamie Redknapp, Roy Keane discuss football, right? Like I like Roy Keane as well, because, you know, he's one of the best ever captains, best ever leaders to play in the Premier League. However, you know, their analysis sometimes of a football game is very, very surface level, right? Whereas like you can go on like so many fucking YouTube videos and get like James Alcott, I believe his name is, you know who I'm talking about, right? He does the ripple effect of football. He is somebody who you know, his insight on the game is so much greater than all these fucking ex-football players sometimes, okay? And you have to realize, you know, don't, just because somebody appears to be an expert, don't buy into what the shit that they have to sell.
Equally, the greatest teams of all time had bad performances. So should we have a bad performance in one of our next 1, 2, 3 games, we'll criticize it. But the seed's being planted, and it's...
Well, let's have a look. Hang on. So we have a message from Gandhi Yusuf, top 11 manager. First time here. Nice podcast, brother. Well, I appreciate that, Yusuf. You know, this ain't a football, you know, channel. You know, we don't normally discuss football, but I just had to kind of say it for the fan base, for the, you know, the way that the mainstream media is gaslighting some of the football fans. I kind of had to make a little video about this. Normally I talk about, you know, you know, establishing your own, you know, kingdom in life, is that becoming a king, coming into your own royal divinity. So it's very far from football, but sometimes we take the lessons from other places in order to, you know, make the point to see what we can derive from those lessons. I need a shout out, brother. So here's your shout out. You know, go watch Gandhi Yusuf, top 11 manager. I'm sure it's football related content. I'm sure it's great content. But yeah, man, good luck with everything and cheers. Thanks for tuning in.
Being planted incorrectly to go, we told you United fans were getting carried away. We told you United fans were going over the top. Now there'll be a handful, just like there's a handful of Arsenal fans who go over the top. But the majority of us are just praising what we see. The majority of us are being very fair in what we're breaking down, the same as Arsenal fans. And where this has all become a little bit of a problem is when you see...
No, there's 5-6 minutes left. I'm looking at it going...
When you see these types of articles, and this was put out yesterday, which is one of the most clickbaity, not even clickbaity, but rage-baity nonsense headlines I've ever seen, which is from embarrassing tifos to the groundbreaking AFTV. Arsenal supporters are increasingly regarded as...
Yeah, so this is again that article from the Telegraph. He now Terry here from the Football Terrace is going to talk about
undignified weirdos. The over-celebrating, the panic attacks over every drop point in the Premier League, and the unfounded conspiracy theories make them football's flat earthers. And I personally feel that this kind of rhetoric, this kind of conversation, this type of talk is disgusting. And the reason I say that is because this weekend, City fans did the exact same thing. There's a conspiracy. The PGMOL don't want us to win. All of that stemmed from what Rodri did. And that's with a couple of weeks of bad decisions. Yet the same fan base were telling Arsenal fans to take accountability and put pressure on their team to perform better when Arsenal fans were moaning about conspiracies.
I mean, the fact that we're now commentating on how fan bases behave, like it'll be different. It'll be a different story if for example, we were talking about hooliganism, right, violence at football, but we're talking about people spewing their opinions at each other, right, about if a refereeing decision was correct or not, right, and like a lot of the time, football is a way for you to get your aggression out in a contained environment, in a safe environment, right? for you to release some of that tension that builds up during your normal life, during your normal work week. Football is a way for you for a cathartic, release, basically, right? And now you have people policing how fans react. You now have people writing articles about how, the behaviors of a fan base. Well, they're not violent behaviors, by the way, right? Like, we're not talking about violence. We're talking about people's opinions. And we live in a social media age. Anyone's opinion can go online. You can have an opinion, right? It comes down to you yourself, being the person who is in control of what goes into your mind, into your news feed, into your, what you bring into your sphere of influence. If you find yourself that, maybe you are somebody who kind of bites easily at all these, clickbait shit, at all these rage, fake news, these fake comments like Gary Neville's bringing to gaslight an entire fan base. If you find yourself being angered by this, being emotionally triggered, I encourage you to step away from it, to maybe have a think about how to change your relationship with how you consume football or football journalism, right? Because these people, that they're hoping to piss you off, right? They thrive on the fact that they can piss you off, that they have some sort of emotional control of you, that they can manipulate you into being pissed off, right? And here at Raw Instinct, we are all about bringing back your divinity, to establish your own kingdom, to become a person who is a subject matter expert. I want, maybe you love football so much that you want to be a subject matter expert in football. Okay, I want you to be the best pundit. I want you to be the greatest pundit. I want you to be bigger than Gary Neville. I want you to destroy Gary Neville. Okay, I wish you become so good at punditry that Gary Neville can never get a fucking job again, right? Because nobody wants to see his face on TV anyway. Let's be serious.
When the truth is, there is no conspiracy. There's just really bad, incompetent refereeing that people like myself have been calling out for years, but nobody wants to have the sensible conversation. But to label Arsenal fans as the conspiracy theorists when every single fan base does it is absolutely ridiculous. But what isn't helped is by the way the mainstream media push this nonsense, push these narratives, the over-celebrating. What over-celebrating?
Yeah, now we have, you're policing how people celebrate a fucking football game, right? How to celebrate 3 points, how to celebrate, like, it is getting ridiculous, right? It just comes to a point where you see, and a particular look at Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. They're the worst of the lot for me, right? Jamie O'Hara and Jason Cundy, their show is based around banter, right? So you can let them off. If Jamie O'Hara wants to have a dig at Arsenal, it's like, I get it. It's supposed to be banter, right? Like, you're the clown that we laugh at. So when you have banter at Arsenal, it's only fair game, right? Whatever. But Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher are two people who, they've got very high positions in punditry, and the types of job that very well respected pundits should have, right? So when they say something, it carries a bit more weight, right? But are they using their position fairly? Are they using it in a way to launch their own agenda, their own careers, to siphon money, to, make connections, right? Because Gary Neville, I'm certain of it, he is making connections in the background. He is trying to influence politics. I think he's a donor for Keir Starmer. Like, he has had some sort of support for them. So he's trying to play goody two shoes while really advancing his own agenda. Don't fall for his nice guy act. And really, I really think Sky Sports should question whether they should still be their top two pundits at Sky Sports.
Arsenal players do not celebrate more after wins than any other group of players I've ever seen before in the Premier League. It's never been done. The difference is the mainstream media makes a big song and dance about it, so everybody hyper-focuses on that situation. The panic attacks over every drop point. I have called this out in the last few weeks. I think Arsenal fans need to relax. But how can Arsenal fans relax when they're consistently being gaslit by the media, by the ex-pro pundits, by the Arteta outers, that every time there's a sniff of trouble, the world is coming to an end.
I mean that's a really great sentence to summary up what I'm trying to say here. It is, you know, it's a two-way street, right? The fans are buying into the fucking rage bait, clickbait shit that the media feeding, and the media feed it because the fan base is reacting to it, right? So as a fan base, as a supporter, as a person who wants to have own agent, you know, my own agency of my own life, you know, to be able to make decisions without external input, you know, you really have to evaluate your relationship with the mainstream media, with the you know, sports journalists, and you know, them telling you how to feel about your team, about your sport that you like to watch. Okay, it is a form of gaslighting. It's in order for you to collectively implode, and then when if Arsenal was to not win this title, then they'll be the first one to blame the fan base as well, right? So they're the ones pissing the fan base off, and then they're like, well, the fan base shouldn't react negatively towards what we write. It is a big joke. It is all for clicks, and I want you to stop the cycle of negativity in your own life and do something better with your time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was a bit different, you know. I'm not really, I don't think I'm going to make any more football content like this anymore unless people like it. Let me know what you think. You know, from time to time I might do something like this when if I think it's relevant. However, you know, it was a bit fun to do. It's a bit different, something new to explore, and we are all about exploring new territory all the time here at Raw Instinct. But that is it for today. Thank you for listening.